What is up, everyone? It's Quinn here, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about what I think is the worst pick you guys can make in every single round of your fantasy football drafts. Yesterday, I did the opposite, talked about my favorite value in every round. This is the video where I'm talking about the landmines I think you guys should try to avoid. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe. If you agree, disagree with my picks, let me hear it down below. But let's just dive right into round one here. And to be completely honest, I don't think there's one player that's just like an awful pick in round one. Personally, my least favorite pick would be Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's being drafted as the wide receiver 6 at the 109. Once again, I'm not saying he's a bad pick. I think he's very safe. He's a high floor. He's been targeted at least 140 times in 3 straight seasons. He's been the wide receiver 4 in points per game in back-to-back seasons. I would just personally take running backs like Christian McCaffrey, Ashton Genty. I'd also take a guy like Nico Collins over him. And so, yes, he's a very high floor option. I just think in terms of overall upside, overall ceiling, I don't think he compares to a few of the guys going behind him. So not a terrible pick. If you want a safe round one option, I totally get it. In round two, my least favorite pick is going to be Josh Jacobs. Now, just in terms of the running back position, like positionally, I'm going to be a little bit lower on Jacobs. I also prefer like Trey McBride, some of the wide receivers, a Lad McConkey, a T. Higgins over a guy like Josh Jacobs. At running back, I have him at running back 11, so not crazy compared to the RB9. He is coming off a solid year one with the Packers. 17.2 points per game was the running back 8. I do just kind of feel like his 2024 was pretty close to his ceiling just in terms of his role with the Packers. Like, he had great red zone usage. He was 5th in red zone touches. He was 4th in touchdowns with 16. But even in a backfield where like very minimal competition, he only had a 67% opportunity share, which was 17th amongst running backs. And this has kind of just been a thing with LaFleur where he does not like to use a workhorse, even dating back to like Derrick Henry with the Titans. Like, he had him in a solid split with Dion Lewis. And this was a 67% opportunity share with their day 2 pick from last year, Marshawn Lloyd, just completely banged up throughout the entire season. So that was a big concern I had going into last year. And I was really in on Marshawn Lloyd because I'm like, he could be the 1B in this backfield. He could be a great handcuff, like could have potential weekly upside. The dude just couldn't stay healthy, but Jacobs still didn't like dominate in terms of the opportunities. Now, he was very efficient as a pass catcher, 3rd in yards per reception, 2nd in yards per route run, but he just was not targeted heavily. He was 39th in route participation. And so I do think he kind of has capped upside at the running back position. Like I said, last year, he was the running back 8. He's being drafted as the running back 9. I do think inherently running backs have more risk when it comes to injuries, even though last year the position stayed super healthy. Like, typically they're going to get injured more often than the wide receivers. And so if I am taking a running back in the first couple of rounds who does have that like potential increased injury risk, I want someone who has a little bit more upside than Josh Jacobs, where if I'm drafting someone at running back 9, late round 2, I want to think they could be a top 5, potential top 3 running back. And I just don't see that as like a realistic ceiling here for Josh Jacobs. In round 3, we're going to have another running back, and it is going to be Kyren Williams. Kyron's nearly going in round 2. He's going off the board as the running back 11, the 301. And admittedly, like, he was someone I faded and I was kind of getting lower on as we got closer and closer to the start of the 2024 season. And so maybe I'm low on him again and I could be wrong. But here are just kind of the facts I want to lay out and where I'm coming from by thinking he is a bad pick. In back-to-back drafts, the Rams have spent a round 3 and then round 4 pick on a running back in Blake Corum and Jarquez Hunter. I think Kyren Williams is a very solid real-life running back, but I don't think he brings really anything crazy, anything special to the table. He wasn't efficient last year. He has pretty much no big play upside. He was 22nd in 15-plus yard runs, despite being 3rd in total carries. And then he also was very inefficient as a pass catcher, also had his own fumbling issues, 5 fumbles, lost 3 of them. And so I think when you're making the case for him as a player, his fantasy value, it pretty much all comes down to his volume, right? Because in 2024, he wasn't super efficient, wasn't amazing as a pass catcher, but he was 2nd in opportunity share and he was 1st in red zone touches. If you are top 2 in opportunity share and 1st in red zone touches, like, you are lined up to have a monster fantasy season. Like, that is the recipe to being a high-end running back 1. Kyron only ended up finishing as the running back 10 in points per game. And so with all the things I laid out, the fact that he wasn't, amazingly productive, the fact that they've brought in this extra competition, I'm not seeing why he would hold on to his usage from last year. Now, it's possible, I guess, they just go out there and they continue to force feed him, but it's just not something I want to bank on here. And so at his position, I would prefer to take a guy like Chase Brown, who I think is kind of a similar bet in terms of volume. I just have slightly more confidence that he's going to retain his volume. I also think he has worse competition. And I'd also take a guy like Breece Hall over him. And then when we're getting into some of the more controversial picks, I would probably take Amarion Hampton. And if we're getting really spicy, I'd probably also take Kenneth Walker, but I'd also accept that, that's kind of close between those two. And I know most people are not going to agree with that. So I just think he's going to lose out on volume. I think the floor could really kind of fall off here. And Sean McVay at times has been kind of volatile with his running back usage, where like the year that Kyron broke out, everyone thought Cam Akers was going to be this clear-cut workhorse. And all of a sudden, Cam Akers is just like locked in as the running back 2, clearly pinned behind Kyron Williams. No, I'm not saying that's going to happen here, where all of a sudden, week 8, Blake Corum or Jarquez Hunter is the running back 1, but I am expecting a little bit more of a committee approach, and I just don't want to bet on a running back who hasn't been super productive, at least last year, and just kind of pray that the head coach is going to continue to force feed him in a way that's, potentially detrimental to his own football team. So round 3, Kyron Williams is the pick. In round 4, my least favorite selection is Joe Burrow. He's being drafted as the quarterback 5, like mid-round 4, the 406. And he is coming off a super impressive 2024 season, threw for over 4,900 yards, 43 total touchdowns, and ended up being the quarterback 3 in points per game. The issue here is not with Joe Burrow as a player. It's just the way kind of quarterbacks are valued for fantasy and what type of production leads to high ceilings. It is so hard to be like a true difference-making, elite upside quarterback 1 without having that like real rushing upside. And Burrow just doesn't, right? Like he might get to 300 rushing yards. He's going to rush in a few, but he is not even going to come close to like a Lamar Jackson, a Josh Allen, a Jalen Hurts, a Jaden Daniels, guys like that. And so I think for him to just pay off at like this mid-round 4 price tag, he probably has to repeat his 2024. And just for someone to like live up to where they're being drafted, I don't want to have to bank on them having like another amazing season, right? Like I don't think 4,900 plus yards, 43 total touchdowns is like a baseline for a Joe Burrow season. Like that's not a baseline for anyone. That is an incredibly impressive year. And then it's like, how does he outperform this? Like what type of insane passing production would he have to have where you look back on this pick and think like, that was an absolute smash selection. Like he'd probably have to be the quarterback 2, quarterback 1 and give you like 24, 25 points per game, which is just such a tough spot to get to if you don't have that rushing upside. And so like round 4, I'm not taking Joe Burrow. This year for quarterback, honestly, I think I'm going to have a lot of late round quarterback options. I think there are dudes like Justin Fields, Caleb Williams, who are super interesting in like round 9, round 10, and it's just not a position I want to reach on. Hence not liking Joe Burrow here. And then we're actually going to have another quarterback in round 5, and that is Patrick Mahomes. Now, to be honest, Mahomes is just like a very weird kind of case study because he's being drafted as the quarterback 6, the 512, and from 2018 to 2022, he was a monster for fantasy, right? He was top 6 in points per game every single season. He had 3 top 2 seasons in points per game. And then the last couple of years, he's kind of just flopped, right? He's been very underwhelming. Quarterback 10 and quarterback 11 in points per game. And then you look at this offense, and like you could maybe make the argument it's going to be better than last year in terms of his weapons, but it's not like they've had major offensive turnover. You can say, all right, he gets Rashee Rice back. Xavier Worthy is going to be a more complete player than he was early on in the season. But then you can just bring up how like Travis Kelce could just continue to decline. And I just don't think there's going to be a massive improvement here with his group of weapons. And so this is just another spot where I'd much rather wait at quarterback. It's very possible someone's going to draft Mahomes in like the 5th round, and he is going to end up right next to dudes getting drafted in round 10 and round 11 when we look at the end of season point per game. So just another spot. I'd rather just wait for a later round guy. Then in round 6, we're going to go to the tight end position with TJ Hawkinson. Going off the board is the tight end 5, a mid-6th round pick. And he had a pretty bad 2024, kind of to be expected, was coming off the torn ACL, was the tight end 16, only played in 10 games. Like really not holding that against him. If you thought he was going to come in after missing like what 7 games of the season and be a great fantasy option, like that was just wishful thinking. I think oftentimes these like mid-round tight end picks can kind of be traps because at the tight end position, you're going to have a few dudes who have that like true elite upside and are the difference making guys. And then from like the tight end 6 to like the tight end 16, they're all going to be pretty close together and they're going to be separated by like a couple points per game. But the ADP difference is going to be someone being drafted at like pick 70 compared to someone being drafted at like pick 140. And so you could make the case that like Hawkinson could be one of those high upside dudes. In 2023, he did average 14.6 points per game, was the tight end 2 in points per game that season. But that was on an offense where the Vikings were 4th in pass attempts, 1st in passing yards, and 6th in passing touchdowns. This year, you have a rookie quarterback. I don't think you're expecting them to put that kind of pressure on J.J. McCarthy. You also have Jordan Addison, who I think is just like a better, more integrated wide receiver than he was as a rookie. And then there's also no guarantee that T.J. Hawkinson gets back to or is even close to his physical form that he was in 2023, right? Even though he's like a full season removed from the torn ACL, it's not a certainty that he's just going to bounce back and be the same or better. And so I'm just very willing to pass on TJ Hawkinson here. Like you've got guys in this round like Travis Hunter, Travion Henderson, George Pickens, Jalen Waddle. Like there's no way I'm taking a round 6 Hawkinson over guys like that. And then around 7, we're actually going to have another tight end. I'm going to go with Travis Kelce. This to me seems just like a really awful value. And it seems like very clear that this could just be a catastrophic pick. He's being drafted as the tight end 6 very early round 7, like going at the 701, so the 6-7 turn. From 2016 through 2023, Travis Kelce was a top 2 tight end in points per game. His worst season over that stretch was 13.8, and that was all the way back in 2016. In 2024, he fell all the way down to the tight end 6 at 12.2 points per game. We saw some serious regression with him after the catch. He was at 3.9 yak per reception. He was at 5+ in the previous 3 seasons. From 2021 to 2023, he broke at least 20 tackles every single season. In 2024, he only broke 5. His yards per route run fell to 1.49 after consistently being in the 2s. And then we also saw that when Rashee Rice was healthy, both early on in 2024 and then like late 2023 where he had that 6-game stretch to end the season, like Travis Kelce's volume completely tanked and he just wasn't earning targets. And so I think you could make the case that like even if he's the exact same player he was last year, this would already be a really bad pick with Rashee Rice kind of earning more volume, him having a lesser and lesser role. But then there's also the potential that he's an even worse player than he was last year. And I'd argue like I'm probably confident that he is going to be worse than last year just based on the fact that it was already a pretty steep decline from 2023 to 2024. And typically you don't have that big dip. Like you're just amazing for so long, have a big dip, and then you magically just stay there. Like I think he's going to continue to go down. So round 7, Travis Kelce, I will just have no interest in that price tag. Then in round 8, we have another veteran here in Cooper Kupp. He's being drafted as the wide receiver 44, the 8'11", and it kind of just feels like another player being buoyed by like name value, past production. To be totally fair, like he wasn't awful last year for fantasy. He was actually pretty decent when he was on the field. Was the wide receiver 19 in points per game. But I think it's very clear that he is not the same player that he was like just a few years ago. The Rams were very willing to let him go just to pay another older wide receiver big money. So like they did not feel confident in Cooper Kupp. It's not even like it was an age issue because they brought in Devontae Adams. I believe they're both 32 years old. Injuries have definitely played a factor here with Cooper Kupp. He's played 12 games or fewer in 3 straight seasons. He's had multiple high ankle sprains, also had a hamstring strain. And so he's 32 years old, coming off of injury-riddled seasons, and he's just going to a much less favorable situation. With the Rams, even if he wasn't the same guy, he was still able to be productive because you had Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford, like squeezing everything they could out of him. You had a solid offensive line. You had another stud wide receiver to kind of take some of the pressure off you. Now he's going to the Seahawks, which is pretty much a downgrade everywhere. Worse quarterback with Sam Darnold, much worse offensive line. You have a wide receiver 1 in JSN, but the next best wide receiver pretty much has like an overlapping skill set with you. And if he's just like way better out of the slot, like JSN might just take those opportunities. And so, like, looking at some of the wide receivers in this same range, I'm not super high on a guy like Matthew Golden. I'd still take Golden here. If you do want to chase like one of those older or past their prime wide receivers, I'd probably be more willing to take a swing on like Diggs coming off an ACL, just given his situation. I think it's more favorable. Plus, he was actually pretty good last year before he went down. So Cooper Kupp, round 8, just can't really get around on it. Then in round 9, I'm going to go with Najee Harris. He's being drafted as the running back 34, the 906. Now, I actually had him like slotted in for this video before the fireworks incident, which the reporting I've seen so far make it sound like it's minor, nothing crazy, but obviously that could be his agent just trying to protect things. This is, without the fireworks thing included. I just feel like unless you're super desperate for like all right production in the first few weeks of the season, I just don't have a lot of interest in drafting these players that are like almost inevitably going to be replaced. Like, sure, Najee's been a volume sponge throughout his career, but a team isn't going to draft a running back in round 1 just to sit him behind Najee Harris for a large portion of the season. Like, maybe Najee's the lead back leading a committee in the first few weeks, but that lasts 2, 3, 4 games, and then all of a sudden he's like nothing more than a committee. I would much rather in this range of the draft take a swing on an ambiguous backfield like a Cam Scatterbo, a Travis Etienne, a Bashal Tutin, guys like that. And then if you do want that like later season handcuff, then I would just take a pure handcuff later on. Like, give me a Scatterbo over Najee, give me an Etienne over Najee, and then in round 12, 13, 14, then I can draft a Tyler Algier or a Ray Davis, guys like that. Then in round 10, going to go with Keon Coleman. To be honest, I didn't feel super strongly about anyone being like a bad pick here. He's being drafted as the wide receiver 52, a late 10th round pick. I just think at wide receiver, if you want to draft kind of like an unproven young wideout, I would rather re-roll on some of these rookies from this year. So like a Luther Burden, a Jaden Higgins. Like Keon Coleman's rookie year was really just nothing special. Wide receiver 55 at 8.6 points per game. And the issue with Keon Coleman is not that I think like he's just not going to be a good player and he's not talented. It's just that I know he's not going to be used in the most optimal way for his skill set. He is being used as like a downfield X wide receiver, like being asked to beat, press man. And that's just not his skill set. He would be best served being a big slot. The problem is that you have like every single weapon on this team who would be better operating out of the slot. People complain that Dalton Kincaid is like playing in line. He should be in the slot. Well, you have Khalil Shakir in the slot. You just paid him. They have Curtis Samuel, Elijah Moore, all guys who are probably best served to be in the slot. And so he's just not going to get that usage. He had 11% of his snaps from the slot. He had a 15.2 ADOT. And so I'm not saying he won't be anything throughout his career. I just think in his current situation, I'm not confident it's going to come together. And so like Jaden Higgins, who knows if he's productive year 1, but I feel more confident that he's not going to be locked into that X wide receiver role and can kind of move around because you have Nico Collins there. For Luther Burden, crowded wide receiver room, things can kind of work their way out and, he could potentially emerge. So Keon Coleman just not going to be hitting the draft button on him a ton. In round 11, going to go with Tank Bigsby. He's being drafted as the running back 44, like a late round 11 pick. I just think in a backfield with 2 other relevant running backs, I feel like of the 3, he's the least likely to be the lead back. And I think he also has the lowest ceiling if he does end up being the guy, just because he doesn't have any receiving upside. And then he also is not a clear handcuff. So like he kind of fits the ambiguous backfield like target, I guess, or like, archetype you want to look for. But it's not an ambiguous backfield where I think he's going to be leading or close to leading. And then he also doesn't have the handcuff value where Travis Etienne goes down, Bashal Tutin might be the lead back, right? We just don't know yet. So in this range, give me Bashal Tutin, give me J.K. Dobbins, give me Rashad White, even guys like, Trey Benson, Ray Davis. I'd prefer them over Tank Bigsby. Like I know he was somewhat relevant last year, but it's a different season, added competition, new coaching staff. I just don't think he's the running back that should be going here. And then in round 12, I just have the 3 quarterbacks. So you have Tua, Penix, and then Stafford. These guys are being drafted as quarterback 21 through 23. This is really not an issue with where these guys are ranked at the quarterback position. This is just way too early in drafts to be picking like a potential second quarterback or they're just not good enough to be a second quarterback. So if you have an elite option, right, you go early Lamar, early Allen, Jane Daniels, Jalen Hurts, even like a Joe Burrow, right, guys like that, you shouldn't be picking a second quarterback. And then like you're not going to have 10, 11 teams taking a second option. So you shouldn't need to reach for these guys in round 12. Like maybe you get a later round like Jordan Love or like a Caleb Williams, and you want one of these dudes to be your second quarterback. Like you really like one of them for whatever reason. Maybe you have a stack, something like that. You just shouldn't need to draft them in round 12, because even round 14, 15, they should still be on the board unless there's like weird scoring settings or best ball, stuff like that. So just wouldn't be taking those quarterbacks in round 12. But that's going to wrap it up for my least favorite pick in every single round. Let me know your thoughts. Do you want to defend some of these guys? Do you like these targets? Let me hear it down below. But thank you all for stopping by, and I'll see you in the next one.